Phyllis and Sharon face captor, Martin arrested? According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Martin Lawson, also known as Alan Lawson, might be caught, giving Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman the opportunity to confront their kidnapper while they are in custody. Although the remaining plot points of this YNR tale have not yet been confirmed, there aren't many possibilities. Martin might decide to leave the nation following his impending run-in with Tracy Abbott. If this last confrontation doesn't work out, Martin can likewise end himself with a terrible destiny. However, once Martin tells Tracy everything and Chancellor gathers proof, such as the security tape from the hardware shop, we cannot rule out the potential that he may be jailed. After all of this, if Martin is taken away in handcuffs, it may present Sharon and Phyllis with a significant opportunity. Phyllis and Sharon deserve the chance to confront their captor and let their rage out after the terror they had while imprisoned at the clinic. Naturally, Martin might take pride in the ceasefire between Phyllis and Sharon. Martin may be seen bragging about his successful experiment and pretending that Phyllis and Sharon ought to be praising him. However, when they were held captive together, Phyllis and Sharon went through one of the most painful events of their lives. If Sharon and Phyllis end up confronting Martin in prison, they will make sure to inform him that he is a psychotic sociopath. Would Phyllis need to confront Martin and let her anger out in order to go on? Phyllis's lack of closure can be exacerbated by the fact that she still doesn't know who kidnapped her. It might aid Phyllis in her recovery after Martin is exposed as the source of the warped voice and all the perverted riddles. After Martin is taken into jail by the police, Phyllis and Sharon might attack him, which would provide them both some comfort. According to teasers for The Young and the Restless, Phyllis may finally begin to make some predictions about her future. Keep checking back for any positive developments that might be imminent. The town was rocked by the news of Martin's arrest, which spread like wildfire. With his incarceration, numerous concerns were raised about Martin, who had always been a strange person with a secret past. What had he done? Why was he being held? What did this entail above all for Phyllis and Sharon, who were now in the hands of a kidnapper? Martin's arrest, a complex web of fraud. Martin has been under police surveillance for weeks. His apparent involvement in a number of criminal activities had put him under monitoring. But nobody had anticipated such a dramatic end. His peaceful neighborhood was overrun by a convoy of police cars the night he was arrested. Flashing lights lit up the darkness as neighbors looked out their windows. As they got ready to arrest Martin, officers surrounded the residence and yelled orders. There was a strange silence about him when he came out at last, hands out in surrender. He didn't object or struggle. He just let the officers lead him away while handcuffing him. Why was he so obedient? What did he know? What was he concealing? The cops searched Martin's house as soon as he was driven away. In order to learn the truth about his enigmatic actions, they had to collect proof. However, what they discovered only made the case more complex. His study was littered with documents, photos, and coded signals that suggested a convoluted network of deceit. Sharon and Phyllis captured by a captor. Phyllis and Sharon were in a terrible situation, while the police were preoccupied with Martin's arrest. An unidentified abductor, who appeared to have a personal grudge against them, had detained them against their will. Their cramped quarters were in a cold, wet basement that was barely illuminated by a single flickering light bulb. A massive steel door prevented them from escaping, and their hands were chained. Ever the fighter, Sharon fought against her limitations, her mind whirling with escape strategies. With a determined expression on her face, she murmured to Phyllis, who was sitting next to her, "We need to figure out how to get out of here. They won't hold us here indefinitely, whoever this is." Phyllis gave a nod. "We must remain composed and ponder. It won't help to panic." The identity of their captor was still a mystery. Through an intercom system, all they had heard was a distorted voice that gave them cryptic warnings and hazy clues as to why they had been captured. It was a cold, impersonal voice that sounded almost robotic. That voice had said, "We have unfinished business. Both of you are aware of your purpose." However, they didn't. Not totally anyway. Were they being punished for a past transgression? Was Martin at issue here? As they tried to solve the puzzle, the questions whirled about in their brains. A relationship between the captor and Martin? Martin sat in front of two investigators who were intent on getting answers as the hours went by in an interrogation room. Detective Holloway, a seasoned veteran and the main detective, leaned forward and narrowed his eyes. "Where are they?" Martin said nothing. Holloway pressed. "You know exactly who I'm talking about. Sharon and Phyllis. They're not there. And we have good cause to think you're related." Martin's face flashed something, maybe shame or realization. Nevertheless, he remained silent. Holloway let out a sigh and looked at his companion. "It will be too late if you do not speak now. Do you wish to carry that burden on your conscience?" Martin let out a slow exhale. He eventually stated, "I didn't take them. But I am aware of who did." There was silence in the room. Holloway stood up. "Who?" After a moment of hesitation, Martin murmured a name. Following a brief exchange of looks, one of the investigators hurried out of the room to tell the search officers. A last-ditch escape. Phyllis and Sharon had succeeded in removing their restraints back in the basement. After exerting themselves until their fingers were raw, Sharon managed to release herself with a final tug and promptly assisted Phyllis in doing the same. They acted quickly since they knew they would not have much time before their captor returned. Sharon checked the steel door, which was of course locked. However, she had spotted a vent close to the ceiling. Maybe one of them could squeeze in, but it was tiny. "First I'll go," Sharon declared. "After that, I'll assist you." Phyllis gave a nod, encouraging Sharon. Old and rusty, the metal grate came loose after a few hard pulls. Sharon crawled forward in the gloom, cramming herself into the little area. She made herself keep moving despite the cramped feeling. The sound of footsteps approached just as Phyllis was ready to follow. Their kidnapper was on the way. "Leave." With urgency, Phyllis muttered. "Get assistance." Sharon realized she had no other option, but she hesitated. Just as the heavy door creaked open, she vanished down the vent, leaving Phyllis behind. The conflict. With her heart racing, Phyllis turned to confront their kidnapper. A face she recognized, a visage that gave her a shock of terror, was revealed as the man moved into the faint light. "You," she exclaimed. The captor grinned, astonished. According to spoilers for the upcoming 2 weeks of The Young and the Restless, which run from March 31st to April 11th, Sally Spectra will not be duped by Phyllis Summers' ruse. While Nikki Newman is faced with a dilemma, Tracy Abbott will also have a dangerous meeting with Martin Laurent, also known as Alan Laurent. Jack Abbott will urge Victoria Newman to inform Victor Newman with some news during the week of March 31st to April 4th. If Kyle Abbott and Claire Newman suffer heartbreak as a result of Jack's displeasure, Victor will have to cope with his retaliation. Jack will send Victoria back to the ranch with his warning, because he wants Victor to understand that. Victoria will also make plans to shield Claire and Kyle's romance from any advances Victor could make, whether or not she delivers on her promise. Lily Winters will accuse Damian Kane in the meanwhile, but he will discredit the source of her information and try to persuade Nate Hastings that his intentions are honorable. Lily will eventually assume leadership in some way, so we'll see if she recognizes Victor's manipulation of her, or if she takes another risk against Damian. According to Y&R spoilers, Sally will become irascible when speaking with Adam Newman. Adam's reconnection with Chelsea Lawson may not be important to Sally, but she will be concerned if he continues to plot against Billy Abbott. Billy's thoughts will go to other topics, such as his dubious relationship with Aristotle Dumas, and his desire to regain Chancellor, once Chelsea informs him of her decision to fully reconnect with Adam. When Jack notices that Billy is going into trouble, he will try his hardest to steer his brother in the right direction, even though it might not be successful in the end. Even though Phyllis will pretend to be nice to Sally, the conflict that is developing will not be stopped by that. Sally might feel that Phyllis will be a threat as long as she remains in Billy's sphere of influence. It appears that Sally will be concerned about Phyllis leading Billy astray, and she might also be concerned about the prospect of a romantic reunion. Chloe Mitchell will encourage Sally to resurrect her old strategy and embrace her cunning side. But will Sally actually utilize a cunning tactic against Phyllis? Lauren Fenmore Baldwin will worry about her husband and ask Nikki for assistance in keeping Victor in line after Victor Newman gives Michael Baldwin some challenging commands. Nikki will have to choose whether to comply with Lauren's request, because she will be urged to betray Victor. It appears that Nikki will make an agreement with Lauren and work behind Victor's back to thwart his goals, which are most likely related to taking down Jabot. Regarding Audra Charles, someone will send her a surprise invitation. It's likely to be Holden Novak, who tries to entice Audra closer with another deft maneuver. Diane Jenkins Abbott will learn about the trap Tracy prepared for Alan, also known as Martin, and she will make some alarming forecasts. Diane might attempt to dissuade Tracy from doing this, but it appears that she will already have made up her mind. But a little later on, Tracy will have some concerns. Tracy might be in danger and start to fear for her safety once she is alone herself with Alan and begins searching for the truth. Tracy will undoubtedly have some frightening moments throughout the week of April 7th to 11th as she tries to persuade Alan that she will always love him. Martin might come clean about who he really is and the shameful kidnapping incident. But what will happen if he discovers Tracy has deceived him? Tracy might find herself in a difficult situation as a result, but perhaps Jack or Chancellor can save her. Hopefully, assistance will arrive before things go out of control, because it wouldn't be wise for Tracy to be completely alone in this circumstance. Martin might still have some tricks in his sleeve, though, particularly if he kidnapped Ashley Abbott while he was in Paris. Does Martin intend to use Ashley as a bargaining chip? When Billy and Sally return, they will undoubtedly have to cope with additional difficulties resulting from his Aristotelian dealings and whatever issues Phyllis may cause. There will be more challenges in Sally and Billy's romance, so watch to see if they can overcome them. According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, the upcoming 2 weeks will be chaotic and full of surprises. According to Monday, March 31st spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Kyle Abbott will confess to Jack Abbott, and Victoria Newman will ask Claire Newman a breakup question. Given Claire's success at Chancellor, Victoria will be praising her at Society. Claire will acknowledge that Victor Newman's disapproval is still a problem if the topic turns to her relationship with Kyle. Victoria will question whether Claire believes that the only way to shield Kyle from Victor's wrath is to end their relationship. Since Victoria spent far too much of her life doing as Jordan told her, Claire will reassure her that's not an option. Claire will continue to make her own decisions going forward, but she will continue to worry about Victor's lack of blessing and hope that there is a way to alter his perspective. Victoria will essentially tell her to ignore all the drama and focus on her happiness, even though Claire will point out that Summer Newman doesn't like her romance with Kyle either. Victoria plans to do everything in her power to protect Kyle and Claire's relationship in the interim. Kyle will tell Jack at the sports club that Claire is unlike any other woman he has ever dated. With Summer, Kyle always felt like he needed to prove himself in some manner, but with Claire things are simple. Kyle will be prepared to handle everything Victor throws at them, because he is so happy in his romantic life. Nevertheless, Kyle will be a little concerned that Victor's constant pessimism might wear Claire down. Kyle's greatest nightmare would undoubtedly be Claire leaving, but Jack will have some optimistic predictions. Nevertheless, Jack will come across as a little worried about Summer's possible desire for a reconciliation with Kyle. There will also be some concerns about Victor using Summer to further his goals. On Monday's YNR episode, Jack will run into Victoria after Kyle leaves and ask her to deliver a message to Victor on his behalf. Victor will have to answer to Jack if he hurts Kyle and Claire, and Victoria will mutter to herself that her father must also answer to her. When Kyle and Claire unexpectedly cross paths at the coffee shop, they will fall in love as Claire pursues this romance. He will keep becoming closer to Damian Kane at Nate Hastings' house while they joke with Amy Lewis. As Amy heals upstairs, she will eventually get some sleep because she won't be feeling well following her therapy.